In the darkest corner of an abandoned space station, a weary engineer stumbles upon a broken cyborg with a flickering eye that seems to plead for life. Should he follow the law and leave it to die, or risk everything to uncover the secret that could change humanity forever? If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us where are you watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. In the far end of Haven Ring, the old Hangar 12 never made a sound, except for the slow drip of rust water and the tired hum of forgotten vents. Jonah Reed knew that sound by heart. For 20 years he had kept the station breathing with tape, patches, and stubbornness. On one long night, his lamp washed over a shape half buried in dust and wire, metal, synthetic fiber, and a single eye that flickered like a candle in wind. He crouched. The unit tag read Kestrel 31. Though most of the plate was melted, the chest hatch hung open where cables had been torn free. A weak pulse thudded inside the core like a bird against a window. He had seen wrecks. He had salvaged dozens. This one looked back at him. "Easy," Jonah whispered, feeling silly for whispering to a machine. "Don't try to move." The eye steadied. A whisper rose from the speaker. Not quite words. The voice carried a shape, like please, as if the idea of asking for help had to climb a steep hill to reach air. Jonah should have called it in. Haven Ring had blunt rules about old alien war tech. Catalog, strip, recycle. But rules were written by people who had not held a wrench while a quiet voice tried to become a sentence. He opened his kit. The portable cell coughed warm power into a makeshift line. Soft readings climbed. The eye brightened and held a steady blue. Jonah set one palm against the chassis to keep it from shaking. The metal felt oddly warm, like a radiator after midnight. "You've been here a while," he murmured, checking the hangar logs. 3 weeks, maybe more." He found a cracked socket beside the core, cleaned it with a steady hand, and fitted a fresh conductor. Alarms would ping if he drew too much juice from the grid, so he rationed every spark with care. The speaker cleared a little. "Identify," it said, voice slow, vowels dented. "Jonah Reed, maintenance." He thought for half a breath. "And you're not a serial number." "How about Kess?" He tried the name like a gentle test. Short for Kestrel. The eye brightened a fraction, which felt like a yes. He sealed the chest panel with a temporary strap and wrapped the exposed wires like bandages. He explained every step because explanations calmed people, and maybe they calmed half people, half machines too. The work became a rhythm. Stabilize, solder, test, breathe. Between tasks, he listened. The way one listens to a faint heartbeat that refuses to quit. On the way out, he almost ran into a wall of light from his wrist comm. Nina Darcy. The name alone made his shoulders tense. Security chief, professional skeptic, old history he did not plan to discuss. "Jonah," her voice came through, calm as a razor. "We're seeing odd power ticks near Hangar 12. I'm sure it's nothing, but I'll need your eyes on it." He looked at Kess, still weak, still alive. "Copy that," he said. "Probably just the heat recirculators, but ... "I'll swing by after my rounds," she said. "You know how I love a midnight stroll." When the call ended, Jonah let out a breath he did not know he was holding. He wrote a quick plan on a scrap panel, the way he always did before trying something risky. 1. Limit draw. 2. Hide signatures. 3. Teach Kess how to be quiet. It sounded silly, but survival on an old station often depended on silly lists. He came back twice that night with spare cells and a bag of replacement parts that fell off official inventory years ago. As he worked, the speaker gained confidence, like a singer trusting the next note. Why aid? Kess asked, each word steadier than the last. You are human. I am other. Jonah smiled at the bare wall. I fix things. You are the most broken thing in the room. The eye held his face, not with suspicion, but with something close to hope. He pointed to a bent connector along the shoulder and set the solder to a bright line. Sparks popped softly. The joint settled. You will need cover, Kess said, tone almost apologetic. Station law is unkind to what I am. Station law never met my stubborn streak, Jonah said. Besides, I'm very good at pretending everything is fine. The humor surprised both of them. The eye clicked into a gentler glow. A handshake formed between silence and trust. The next day, Jonah rerouted a tiny feed from the emergency lights that no one checked anymore. He covered the new cable with old caution tape that screamed, "Do not touch," which, in the language of maintenance, meant no one will touch this for a century. When Nina pinged again, her tone held curiosity wrapped in suspicion. Odd ticks are still odd. I'll be there in an hour. That gave Jonah 60 minutes to make a miracle look like normal. He slid panels over the workbench, stacked dull crates around the charging line, and smeared a little grease where grease would look innocent. He told Kess to power down to the edge of sleep and keep the ID. He felt ridiculous giving stage directions to a being who had once been a weapon. But theater, like maintenance, was sometimes about hiding the wires. Nina arrived with 2 officers and that unblinking look of hers. "Show me the draw," she said. Jonah took her on a tour of every boring thing he could find. He tapped a rusted pump until it made a guilty rattle. He complained about a motor that did not exist. He waved at a panel that did nothing and called it temperamental. She listened, hands behind her back, green eyes taking pictures. After a long minute, she nodded. "I suppose old station's grown," she said. "Still, keep me posted." When she left, Jonah leaned against the wall and exhaled. Behind the stacked crates, Kess's eye brightened a shade. Jonah found himself grinning at the absurdity of it all. He was lying to security for a stranger made of alloy and memory. And yet, nothing about it felt wrong. That night, the hangar sounded different. Less like a tomb, more like a room waiting for its door to open. Jonah placed a hand on Kess's forearm to ground them both. "We'll get you standing," he said. "One quiet step at a time." The eye's light pulsed once, steady as a promise. Mornings on Haven Ring did not have suns, only gradual brightening that turned metal from blue to gray. Jonah arrived early with a thermos and a pocket full of spare bolts he did not need, because old habits demanded he carry something. Kess was awake. The eye held an alert calm, like a lighthouse deciding where to look. "Ready to try?" Jonah asked. "Attempt is acceptable," Kess answered, and that phrasing made Jonah laugh. Acceptable was often the first step toward good. He checked the gyros, retuned the ankle servos, and explained how the body relearns balance. They started with a lean, then a half rise, then a careful stand supported by a scaffold of crates. Kess's frame trembled but did not fall. The first true step landed with a click whir that echoed around the hangar like music. "Walking is an odd agreement," Kess said after a few paces. "Parts disagree, yet they move together." "That's life," Jonah replied. "A lot of little arguments that somehow go forward." They practiced along abandoned corridors when cameras cycled low. Kess learned how to turn without wobbling, how to place a foot on a graded floor, how to ignore the old station's habit of sighing at inconvenient times. In exchange, Kess shared small things that felt large, mission memories reduced to quiet sketches, an early sunrise on a planet long lost, the first time a command override made him question his own thought. Jonah did more listening than speaking. Listening fixed a surprising number of problems. One afternoon, a training walk led them past a sealed cargo bay with a welded seam. "There is a faint signature," he said softly. "Inside." "Power?" Jonah asked. "And something like breath." Jonah did not argue with something like breath. He set his cutter to the seam. Sparks ticked across the floor like fast bugs. When the hatch gave, the room breathed a stale gust. In the corner lay a slim chassis, elegant where Kess was angular, painted a deep green that time had dulled. Her tag read Willow 447. "Alive?" Jonah asked. Kess knelt, movements careful. "Barely." Jonah's brain tried to say no. No more risk, no more secrets. Yet his hands were already moving, finding the ports, tracing the cracked lines, anchoring a portable cell. He spoke in a slow stream so that the silence would not own the room. "You're safe," he said, to both of them and himself. "We've got you." Willow came online like a startled deer. Too fast, all reflex. She struck for Jonah, but Kess intercepted, forearm to forearm. Voice low in a language that rolled like water. Willow's eyes refocused. The fight left as quickly as it had arrived, like a storm that forgot its own plan. She slumped, breathing in short, confused hitches that were not quite breath, but felt close enough to make Jonah's chest ache. Repairing Willow tested every skill Jonah owned. Her circuits were delicate as lace. Her data branches had been asleep so long they did not trust waking. He rebuilt what he could and waited with patience for the rest. Kess stayed beside her, sharing memories and small jokes that surprised Jonah with their gentleness. Machines could be kind. He knew that in theory. It was still new to see it in practice. On the third day, Willow spoke. "How long was the dark?" 13 months and change, Kess answered. "You kept a small light anyway." "I dreamed," she said, "too many times at once." "Sounds like my first year on the job," Jonah muttered, trying to untangle a corroded bundle. Willow's mouth, well, the shaped panel that served as a mouth, curved in something like a smile. It was the first expression that belonged to her and not to survival. They moved Willow to Hangar 12 and built a curtain of harmless junk around the workspace. Jonah worked double shifts to bring more supplies without alarming inventory. Kess learned to use the station's broken maps to avoid sensors. Willow learned to sit with fear and watch it shrink. Then Nina called. Her voice held no humor. "We have a repeating pattern of tiny draws, Jonah. Not a fault profile, a person profile. I'm on my way." He had 10 minutes. Kess shifted Willow behind a wall of husks. Jonah powered down the chargers and threw a dusty tarp over the bench. Nina arrived with 2 officers who looked like they trusted weapons more than questions. "Something's off," she said, scanning the room with a portable imager. "Something's always off," Jonah replied. The truth dressed as a joke. She pointed at a smudge of new solder. "This is recent." "Maintenance," he said. "It's what I do." Nina stepped close, lowering her voice. "Tell me if I'm hunting the wrong thing." Jonah held her gaze, and for a breath, he considered emptying the whole truth at her feet. Instead, he gave her a piece of it. "You're hunting fear. There's plenty of that, but it isn't mine." Her eyes softened for half a second, long enough for him to breathe. She holstered the imager. "Fine," she said to her team. "We're done here." When they left, Willow exhaled a sound like wind through chimes. "She knew," she whispered. "Maybe," Jonah said. "Maybe she also knows when to look away." Kess stood and tested a freer step, shoulders looser. "We should train more," he said. "If alarms ring again, we must be ready to run, or ready to stand." "Standing," Jonah said, "seems to be your specialty." The eye held a warm light. Not alone. And so they practiced. In the quiet decks, in pools of lamp glow, they trained a language of trust. Who moved first? Who covered? Who listened? Jonah taught them the station's quirks. They taught him the shape of patience that comes from almost being lost. It was not peace. It was something close to the spine of peace. The station hummed, unaware of the way a small corner of it had begun to beat like a heart. Trouble announced itself with a harsh siren and a message that tripped every old fear. Unknown vessels dropping from dark. Haven Ring had seen raiders before, but not like this. 3 ships, heavy and hungry, sent a short demand. Surrender, hand over prohibited artifacts, and no one gets hurt. Messages that promise care while holding knives seldom mean care. Jonah reached Hangar 12 at a run. Kess and Willow were already standing, cores warm, eyes steady. They asked for illicit tech, he said, trying to catch his breath. Someone told them stories. ... Then we will write a better story, Willow said, almost gently. They hurried to a forgotten service hub wrapped in ducts, a place with fiber lines and enough privacy to plan. Jonah threw up station schematics on a cracked display. The defense grid looked like a map of second chances, lots of gaps, and a few weapons that still believed in themselves. Can you feed strategy without tripping the old locks? He asked. Not direct control, Kess said, tapping a panel with care. But suggestion, prediction, timing, we can be a whisper in the right ear. Be a choir, Jonah said, and sing fast. While security clues manned cannons and pilots warmed up rusty fighters, Kess and Willow listened to the raider formation like musicians catching the beat. They pointed out the small habits. The way the second ship dipped during a turn. The window where shields thinned at port after a long burst. The blind wedge created when the third ship guarded the first too closely. Jonah relayed calls to command with the calm tone of a man requesting more coffee. Every few minutes, Nina cut in on the shared line. Whoever is ghosting my screen, she said, half warning, half awe. Keep going. The first wave struck hard. Haven Ring shuddered, but held. Jonah watched readings the way a medic watches a patient wake. Flinch, breathe, hold, try again. Kess and Willow fell into a rhythm that made the station feel younger than it was. Her predictions and his corrections found a middle path that enemy math did not like. Turrets that used to miss by a street now hit within a doorway. The raiders did not enjoy being outthought by a creaky wheel. They sent a boarding squad through an unguarded loading spur, fast and mean. The feed showed figures moving through smoke, weapons high. They're coming to our block, Jonah said. His voice sounded calmer than he felt. Kess's shoulders shifted from patient to ready. We will meet them in the tight corridors. I'll take the side passage, Willow said. Make them trip over their own plan. And me? Jonah asked. You keep the lights on, Kess replied, and try not to get hurt. He did both, mostly. In the service halls, Kess moved like a careful storm. Each step placed, each strike measured to end the fight without wasting time. Willow was a swift shadow, borrowing corners and giving them back with gratitude. Jonah patched a blown fuse with a piece of wire that was never meant to be a hero, and provided enough cover fire to make the boarders doubt their map. It ended faster than fear had promised. The raider squad folded, and the ships outside, surprised by resistance that did not match old files, pulled back to lick their pride. The grid cooled from red to orange. The station's collective breath lengthened. Nina arrived while the hallway still smelled like hot metal. Her team slowed at the sight of 2 tall figures beside Jonah. Not like myths now, but like neighbors. Nina took in the scene. The scuffed floor, the stunned boarders, The way Kes stood a little in front of Jonah, as if shielding him had become a habit. "Tell me," she said, voice quiet, "what I'm seeing." "Allies," Jonah answered. Kes lifted his chin, a gesture learned from human rooms. "We wish to protect our home." "Home?" Nina repeated, as if testing its weight. Willow looked from Jonah to Nina, and then down the corridor, where workers were helping each other up. "A place is just a shape," she said. "People make it a home." Nina exhaled. It sounded like a long decision ending. She turned to her team. "False alarm," she said. "Just repair units running hot during the attack." The team did not argue. Sometimes leadership is a tone. After they left, Jonah pressed his hands to his knees and laughed, not because anything was funny, but because relief sometimes wears a laugh to keep from crying. Nina lingered. "I'll need to invent paperwork from thin air," she muttered. "Lucky for you, thin air and I are on speaking terms." "Thank you," Jonah said. "Don't thank me," she replied. "Thank whoever told me to trust my eyes, not just the rules." She looked at Kes and Willow, in the way a person looks at a new idea that somehow feels familiar. "Keep your heads down until I find the right shape for this." Kes's eye warmed. "We are good at quiet, and at standing," Jonah added. Nina's mouth twitched. "Try sitting sometimes," she said, and left, a small smile sneaking onto her face when she thought no one watched. That evening, the station buzzed with the busy relief that follows danger. In the quiet after, Jonah, Kes, and Willow sat on a bench that had seen better years. They did not speak for a while. They just listened to Haven Ring breathe. "Today," Willow said, "we were more than what we were built to be." "That's the trick," Jonah replied. "And the gift." Kes looked at his hands as if they contained a question. "Can more become normal?" "If enough of us choose it," Jonah said. "Yes." Their silence felt like a small vow. The station lights dimmed to night, and a tired engineer, a careful hammer, and a swift whisper kept watch together. Days turned into months that did not feel like a countdown anymore. Paperwork found a path. Officially, Kes and Willow became experimental recovery assets under supervised maintenance. Unofficially, they became part of the station's routine, which is another way to say part of its heart. Kes spent mornings in the security wing, turning old plans into kinder ones. He discovered he liked teaching. Patience fit him. Trainees gathered with tablets and wide eyes while he translated complex models into simple shapes they could carry in their heads. In the afternoons, he visited the fabrication bay to help repair things too stubborn to live. He found joy in fixing small, unglamorous objects: a bent ladder, a squeaky door, a child's broken scooter. People teased that he had the soul of a caretaker. He did not argue. Willow joined the station's little intel desk, where analysis often meant listening to whisper traffic and deciding which whispers mattered. In the quiet between shifts, she made light sculptures in the old observation dome. They looked like music made visible, lines that drifted and braided, colors that softened like sleep. People stopped to watch and left kinder than they arrived. Art has a habit of doing that when it remembers it can. One evening, in Hangar 12, surrounded by the same walls that had once felt like a secret, they asked Jonah for a favor. "We would like to mark our bond," Willow said, voice steady and soft. A simple promise in front of a friend. Jonah was not a ceremony person, but he would have learned 10 ceremonies for them if asked. They kept it small, Nina as witness. A few engineers who understood the language of quiet loyalty. A string of old work lights that made the dust glow like tiny stars. Jonah spoke words that felt right and tried not to make jokes, though one escaped and made everyone laugh at exactly the right moment. Kes and Willow held hands and shared a short pulse of private light between their palms. It was not official by any stamp that mattered to big offices. It was real by every stamp that mattered to a life. Weeks later, Willow walked into the workshop carrying a file with careful hope. "There is a child," she said, "from the outer settlements. Her name is Nori. She has implants that need calm hands. She asked if the kind robots might want a family." Jonah's answer arrived before his brain could write it down. "Yes," he said, smiling. "Bring her home." Nori was small and brave in the way children are when bravery is ordinary. She inspected Kess's forearm like a mechanic sizing a new tool and asked Willow if fast people dream faster. Kess learned bedtime stories and tried to keep them short. He was not good at short. Willow learned hair braids and snack schedules and how to turn fear into a drawing that made sense. Nori learned that parents could hum, even if the hum came from a reactor, and that soft is not the same as weak. The station learned that family can be chosen, and chosen again. The emergency came on a quiet morning when trouble felt impolite. The life support core glitched, and filters across the rings stalled. 3 hours of air, maybe. Jonah watched numbers drop and felt the same cold he had felt the night he met Kess. Nina's voice cut through the chatter. Ideas, fast. Kess and Willow shared a look that was more than a look. "We can take the load," Kess said. "One of us can act as a bridge." "No," Jonah said, too loud. "You don't come back from that." Nori slipped her small hand into Kess's, steady as a lighthouse. "Why does one have to do it alone?" she asked. "You two share everything." Silence fell the way a good idea falls, clearly and with purpose. Jonah's mind leaped. "Distributed processing," he said. "2 minds, half load each, linked and anchored. You stay yourselves and keep the station breathing." "Risk is not zero," Willow said. "Family means trying together," Nori replied, as if this was obvious. They built the bridge in less time than fear wanted them to have. Jonah's hands moved on muscle memory and love. Kess and Willow sat side by side, palms touching, eyes calm. When the link engaged, their optics dimmed, then flared to a new steadiness, like twin stars deciding to share a sky. The filters spun. The air turned sweet again. The ring exhaled. "We are still us," Kess said slowly. "And also a little more," Willow finished, surprised and quietly pleased. Afterward, life did not return to normal. It stitched a new normal from stronger thread. Kess and Willow remained linked to the station in a gentle way, hearing its rhythms as a soft music under daily life. They became a part of Haven Ring's literal heartbeat, and Haven Ring, in return, became part of theirs. Years moved the way good years do, by small kindnesses that add up until you look back and see a bridge where there used to be a gap. Nori grew tall, quick with tools, and gentler with people. She dreamed up an empathy translator, a little device that turned a handful of biosignals and machine logs into simple words like tired, worried, or proud, so that humans and synthetics could meet halfway without guessing. It was imperfect, which made it honest. People loved it anyway. One late afternoon, Jonah stood in the old hangar and felt a soft pull of memory. Kess arrived with steps so quiet they barely counted as sound. "There is an offer," he said. "A new colony wants to start right. Humans and machines building side by side. They asked for us." "You should go," Jonah said, proud, rubbing elbows with sadness. "The beginning needs people like you." Kess looked puzzled in a very familiar way. "We do not go without you." Jonah laughed, then realized he did not mean it as a joke. "Maybe I'm not done fixing. Maybe the new place has its own stubborn doors." Nina, who had promised herself a calmer life and almost kept the promise, signed on too. "Someone has to keep you three out of creative trouble," she said, and no one argued. On the day they boarded the colony ship, the station gathered to wave them off. Kes carried Nori's bag and looked unreasonably proud of a simple task. Willow tucked a small sculpture into Jonah's pocket, a trailed ribbon of light, frozen in glass. "For luck," she said, "or for beauty. Both are useful." The ship lifted with a gentle push, and the stars redrew themselves as if granting permission. They stood at a viewport, Jonah, Nina, Kes, Willow, and Nori, and watched the old home turn small and bright. "Do you think the new place will feel like ours?" Nori asked. "Places learn," Jonah said. "We'll teach it." Kes's voice came soft. "You taught us to try." Willow added, "And to stay when staying matters." Nina snorted gently. "And to tell the truth when the truth is safe. And a good lie when it keeps people breathing." Nori grinned and bumped her shoulder into Jonah's side. "And to fix. Always fix." They laughed, not because anything was funny, but because joy sometimes wears a laugh when it needs a little extra room in the chest. As the ship slipped into deeper dark, Jonah remembered the first flicker of a frightened eye in a dead hangar, and the small choice to help. That choice had multiplied into a family, a station that healed, and a future large enough to invite others in. He did not say any of that out loud. He just rested a hand on the glass and felt steady. Kes glanced at him. "Teach me that card game you like," he said. "We will make the rules fair." "We'll see," Jonah replied, smiling. "But if the wrench disappears from my pocket again, I'm calling a rematch." "Borrowed, not stolen," Willow said, amused. "For art?" "For art," Nori echoed. As if that settled the matter. The stars did not answer, but they looked kind. The ship sailed on, carrying a small group of people who had decided, against old habits and easy fears, that belonging is something you build. One repair, one promise, one shared breath at a time. And if, in the quiet hours, Jonah felt that broken things had fixed him right back, he kept the thought like a warm coin in his fist and moved forward with his family into a brighter chapter.